All right, boys and girls, welcome back to another classic episode of Blam Blam Truckers. I wasn't planning on doing another episode tonight, but I'm just kind of in the mood to go over a little bit more Transformers Love and Joy with you guys. Love and joy unto you, and to you a wassail too. Um, yeah, this is probably my favorite chapter in the whole book, Chapter 3. I love this going over special abilities in Chapter 2, but Chapter 3 is equipment, and such a brilliant job that our good friend the High King did. Um, yeah. So I also want to get my equipment thing sheet ready. So let's go to Xformers, rules changes, and it's not under rules changes. Xformers, doobie 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 doobie. I don't know where that file is. Gameplay changes. Let's see what this is. Yep. Yeah. High King actually does this already. Okay, I will find that when it's appropriate and get back to you because I created a jetpack. I created a couple of guns. How to do armor. I did a little bit of adding on here. Oh well, not seeing it right now. So here we are. Chapter 3, Weapons, Tools, and Equipment. Weapons, Tools, and Equipment. Joy. So again, beautiful MS Paint art that our good friend the High King created. A lot better than I could do. I just appreciate this guy a lot. Like the toys, there are a lot of accessories, integrated weapons, tools, and payload devices that are a part of the robot that need to be taken into consideration. These items can save a robot and comrades in the heat of battle, but are worthless if they are not employed or are forgotten. Players are encouraged to draw their characters out and place all of the objects around them that apply. It doesn't matter how rough it is as long as it is functional. He likes seeing drawings. Most GMs do. And I like getting my players involved, personally. So this is where he starts. Well, actually, he started this in Chapter 1, but this is where he really starts getting into character here. So he's actually playing as Wheeljack here. The name's Wheeljack, and I'll be taking you through the list of typical weapons and tools encountered on the battlefield. Weapons and tools. These weapons are all available in non-integrated form, but some of them are available in integrated form, where the dice from integrated weaponry determines their damage output. Okay. So when we go over building our characters, we're going to get into how damage output is impacted by integrated versus non-integrated weaponry, and I have a rule change that I use for that. But we're not there yet. Right now we're just going to be talking about the different kinds of ranged weaponry. So you have your conventional earth pistol. It does 2 to 4 damage human scale. Conventional rifle, depending on what kind of pistol it is. And I don't know how much you truckers out there know about guns, so I'm not going to get into too much detail here. The bigger the caliber, the more damage the gun does. That's the general rule. There's exceptions to that when you start talking about, magnum loads. And technically a 22 and a 223 are the same caliber weapon, .22. But 223 has a lot more gunpowder in it. A lot more. Still, initially a hunting round used for hunting deer. So yeah, conventional rifles generally do between 4D and 6D damage human scale. Conventional assault rifle. There is no actual agreed upon term by anyone on what the difference is between an assault weapon and a regular weapon is. All weapons are designed to assault people. That's why they're weapons. I'm sorry, all weapons are used to assault people. That's why they're weapons. If you're not assaulting someone, it's not a weapon anymore, it's a tool. That's how a knife goes from tool to weapon. That's technical and a legal standpoint. Assault just doesn't, it's thrown in there to make it sound scary. It is not done to actually give you a real qualification. There is no real world way to quantify the difference between an assault weapon and a non-assault weapon. There's just no way to do it, which is too bad because A lot of people use the term, doesn't really mean much. He's talking about machine guns. The most distinguishing feature between a conventional rifle and an assault rifle is the assault rifle's ability to fire on full automatic or burst. A weapon that fires on full automatic is an assault rifle. Is not an assault rifle. It's a machine gun. You just pull the trigger down and it keeps shooting until you run out of ammo or you release the trigger. He's got them doing 40 to 60 damage human scale. That's fine. So again, this is all up to this point, and including the next one, we're getting into human weaponry. The last one is high heat saber rounds, which comes directly from the first Transformers live action movie from 2007, the Bayverse, the Bayformers. The most depleted uranium rounds that eat through tritranium and quadratanium armor. Only available in 7D damage, 50 caliber round capacity, considered to be dealing out 7D class 1 damage. That's a lot of damage. Yeah, he's probably thinking about a 50 caliber rifle, not a 50 caliber pistol. Personally, as a GM, I would say it would be 5D class 1 damage, if that, for a high heat saber round, 50 caliber capacity pistols. Yeah, this is how humans fight Transformers. Cybertronian pulse rifle. Okay, now we're getting into the Cybertronian weaponry. The Cybertronian pulse rifle. Pulse rifles can fire in single shot mode or at a 3-round burst setting. This is Optimus Prime's weapon of choice. He has a pulse rifle. That's where he's getting this from, the term from. It's right off of the card file that came with Optimus Prime. Damage is always 5D, but the pulse rifle's overall damage is offset by scale. The weapon is made in 3 available models, Class 1, Class 2, and Class 3, so any class can carry it. If carried by a Cybertronian, it takes up to 2 spaces in payload. It gets into a lot of technical detail that you're going to see on the chart that's coming up. Its most unique feature is the burst option. When firing on burst, it is firing 3 high-energy bolts. Damage on burst is 7D. Due to the recoil of the weapon firing on burst, it is at a negative 2D to strike. Good news is that it allows 3 shots in one action. The blasts cannot be spread out amongst multiple targets, but are focused in on one target at 7D. It fires 50 shots before it needs an energon clip. Each single shot counts as only 1 shot. If fired on burst, it counts as 3 shots. Attack is linear. There's no spread here. They're almost always carried as non-integrated weapons by Autobot soldiers. So, pulse rifle, 5D damage, can be fired on burst for 7D damage, and it takes 50 shots. Good to know. Cybertronian miniguns. I swear these descriptions do end up getting smaller eventually. Miniguns are not conservative when it comes to saving ammunition. Typically, unless the character has hooked up in a very large ammunition belt, these weapons only allow 15 bursts. Weapon's selling point is that it can fire in a linear pattern, where the target is actually aimed at, or in a fashion where it lays waste to an area spread out by sweeping the weapon. Sometimes Cybertronians have one attached that does full damage for linear and half damage for spread. Some have 2 miniguns installed, the dual minigun feature where if they fire with both arms at a linear target, they do full damage. If they fire one arm at a linear target, they do half damage. If they fire both arms by sweeping the weapons, they do half damage. And if they fire one arm sweeping, they do 1/4 damage. The dual minigun option is often used primarily to have more ammunition to use. Miniguns are usually integrated weapons, but can be carried. They're usually integrated. They can be carried in your payload. Single miniguns take up 1 point of EP, and dual miniguns take up 2. Integrated minigun users can use their EP to carry ammunition belts. Large belts of 100 shots take up 2, while half belts take up 1 EP. They contain 50 shots. Attack is linear and spread. So the minigun is the only weapon that does both area effect damage and single target damage. Good to know. Cybertronian fusion cannon. So this is what Megatron carries. The fusion cannon is the less conservative. If you've been reading my Cybertronian misadventure or listening along, this is the weapon of choice for our good friend Grinder. The fusion cannon is the less conservative version of the pulse rifle. The drawback of the fusion cannon is that it uses up power very quickly, but the damage output is 6D plus 2, so it's almost at 7D, which takes 3 energon, or 3 rounds, or however you want to call it, 3 ammo. Well, the Cybertronian fusion cannon always takes 2 energon charges every time it's fired, so it's 2 ammo per shot. It's really only got 25 rounds of ammo. It has a 50 round charge. Or 50, it's worth 50 energon, but it uses 2 charges per shot. That could come up if you're trying to fill it from your own energon supply, or you're using it to the thing to charge yourself up or someone else. So it's got 50 energon, but it uses it twice. They're not often used as integrated weapons. Megatron is the exception to that. They use up a robot's core power that should be 200, too quickly if used in battle. Yeah. I'm going to put this on pause, and I will be right back. All right. I'm back from the pause. I'm cooking dinner right now. I know, it's exciting work. Cybertronian Pulse Carbine. This is the same thing as a rifle, but it's smaller and carries less ammo and has less range. That'll all be shown in the chart. I probably would have put this directly under the Pulse rifle, but whatever. Cybertronian laser rifle and laser pistol. So the laser rifle has some of the longest range in the game. The laser rifle, the rockets, and the railgun all have the highest range in the game. You'll see it on the chart. So incredible range with the laser rifle. Damage output is less intense. If you're carrying this, it's only 3D damage. But it has incredibly high ammo at 150 rounds. The laser pistol has less range than the rifle, does a little bit less damage at 2D, but it's got 125 ammo capacity. So, yeah. Lasers are available as integrated or non-integrated weapons. So, Cybertronian Pulse Wave, and he's got the note here. Lasers are available as integrated dice set by integrated weaponry, sets damage and range accordingly. So if it's 3D or more, it's at laser rifle range. If it's at 2D or less, it is at pistol range. Cybertronian Plasma Wave Gun. The plasma ejector and plasma wave guns are very similar in ammunition and range and energy expenditure. The only difference, so the 2 plasma weapons are both plasma weapons. I know it sounds obvious when I say it like that, but people don't think of it that way. So he had to be explicit here, and I get it. I do the same thing. The only difference is how the round is applied to the target. The plasma wave gun fires a plasma round at a much slower rate. The reasoning behind this is that the intent is for the round to hit an area and burst. So it's an area effect weapon. Damage is typically low for the scale of the shooter, but high for enemy, smaller craft, vehicles, robots, and personnel. This is a favorite casualty-inflicting weapon among larger robots who usually lose out to fighting smaller, more maneuverable opponents. So it's giving a class 3 an edge. With the wave gun, even a near miss can be fatal. The weapon typically has an ammo capacity of only 15, the lowest ammo we've seen so far. And as a non-integrated weapon, it would take up 2 slots of EP. For non-integrated weapon, damage is typically between 2 to 3D. Okay. So he took this from, I think his name was Blackout. It was the Decepticon helicopter in the first live-action movie, the first Bayformer movie there from 2007, when it attacks the base. Hello?
Getting kicked off the show definitely was the stage setter for a lot of issues that I still face today as a black man.
Okay. Sorry, guys. Sorry. Disregard. Disregard. My phone, for some reason, decided to turn on and start playing the game the show I had been watching. I've been watching Quiet on the Set, The Dark Side of Kids Television. Very interesting. If I ever do make it into the movies, I don't plan on working with kids, but if I do, I'm going to make sure that the kids do not get taken advantage of like they were in that show, or put into dangerous situations, because those were awful. That wasn't my food alarm going off, was it? It might have been. Let me see where we're at for time. Nope. Okay. We're good. Yeah. Sorry, guys. It's that was unexpected. If I was going to edit this, which I'm not, all of that would be cut out. So let's put on a 7-minute timer here. That's 7 seconds. That is not what I wanted. There we go. Okay. And it started again.
You know what I mean? Maybe I wasn't supposed to be on set.
Wow. Oh, wow. Hey, Buse, if you're watching this, Mr. Editor Man, cut out this whole section. So now we're going to the Cybertronian Plasma Ejector. The Plasma Ejector was created to counterbalance the pulse rifle and fusion cannon's offsets. One would only get one shot, no overwhelming damage bonuses, and no multi-shot penalties. Same range as cannon and pulse rifle, but the damage would be 5d plus 2. Ammo capacity is 50. This weapon is available as a non-integrated weapon and costs 2 EP. Yeah. So it's more powerful as a single shot than the pulse rifle. Only uses one bit of energon, one energon per shot. So it's not as powerful as a fusion cannon, which does 60 plus 2 damage, but it uses less energy. Also, unlike a pulse rifle, it can't be shot on a burst setting, which means it only does the 5d plus 2 damage. So, yeah. Those are the three main ones to compare in the 5d plus range damage, 5d damage plus range. There you go. We're going to keep going, though, because there's a lot more tools here and weapons. Rockets are used to similar effect as the plasma wave gun, except that rockets are typically plus 2d to strike targets. So you actually get a damage bonus. I'm sorry, an accuracy bonus when using rockets, which is pretty big, but they're also the lowest ammo you can carry out of all the weapons. You get 5 shots, that's it. And then to buy extra ammo, it's 2 slots of ammo cost, 2 EP will allow you to carry 5 extra rockets. So, yeah. Damage is typically 1d to 3d. There you go. Enjoy. Have fun. The area effect weapons are generally designed to not do very much damage. Oh, excuse me. The exception to that is the minigun, which still doesn't do a ton of damage. And it only does half damage when you're doing the area effect. Cybertronian null rays. So let's move on. Cybertronian null rays. Nasty weapons created by the Decepticons to mock the Autobots' ion weaponry. Null rays have lower damage output than pulse rifles, fusion cannons, or plasma ejectors, but if they successfully strike any target, they will do damage to anything non-living, biological, or mechanical, and are especially deadly to mechanical beings, forcing the target to roll an additional strength check, -1d, versus the damage of the weapon. If unsuccessful in the save, the target will lose usage of one of their systems for 1d6 rounds. That's a long period of time in combat. Damage output for a null ray is typically 4d for a non-integrated weapon. Ammo capacity is 100. Cybertronian death null rays. Okay, so here's the deal. With this and ion rifles, the way he's got the rules written is null rays and ion weaponries ignore armor. That is not how I play it. In my games, ion weaponry ignores armor. Null ray, if it hits you, if you get hit by a null ray, first you resist with your armor. Then you roll a second resist, and the attacker rolls a second resist. Without your armor, it's a pure strength check for the secondary effect. In my games, the secondary effect is the only thing that is rolled without the armor. The main damage you can still resist with armor. Otherwise, no one will ever take ion weaponry because Null rays do the exact same thing. They ignore armor, but they have an additional secondary effect. That's why I have them not ignore armor. Yeah, I hope I made that clear. That's one of the changes I make to the game. Cybertronian ion weaponry. It ignores armor. That's what it does. Has half the range of lasers, which is still significant range, but it ignores armor. It also only does damage to electronic beings. So it won't actually do any damage to houses. Well, it might short out their electrical system, but it's not going to knock them over. And it will not do any significant damage to fleshlings, humans. I usually have it roll stun damage against humans, like an electrical shock, like a taser. The Autobots have fought Decepticons on Cybertron and across countless worlds over the eons, and seeing the destruction their war has caused have made many of them choose to carry and use ion weaponry, unlike the plasma high-velocity projectile and laser weaponry that the Autobots use to fight Decepticons on open ground with ion. Ion weaponry only does damage to mechanical opponents in a linear single-shot burst, single target damage. Damage from an ion pistol is 4D, range is half that of its laser pistol cohort, ammo is 100. Half the range of the laser rifle, 5D in damage for an ion rifle, and ammo is 125. Remember, it ignores armor. So that's huge. Or it can be big. If you're going up against somebody with quadrutanium armor and you've got an ion rifle, then all that quadrutanium armor, all of it, ignored. That's useful. There's a tool to deal with this. It's called Ground. It reduces ion damage by half. There's a reason why I have it on Grunt, because that guy's indestructible. Okay, Cybertronian railguns. Railguns fire high-velocity projectiles in a single linear shots. Again, single target damage. They can be used as an integrated weapon. The weapon properties are further explained in the fact description below, and their stats are posted in the chart. So I will let you guys read that. Basically, it does 4D plus 1 damage, same range, ammo capacity of 75 shots. Yeah. And it is time for me to go check my food again. I'm leaving this up here for you guys to pause and read the screen if you want to. Pause, pause, pause. Pause, pause, pause. Pause and read. Pause and read. I'm going to put this chart, the start of the chart up here. Actually, that's the entire chart. Where is this? No, didn't quite get it. Anyway, that's the entire chart. And I'm going to pause to get my food. And I'm back. That was actually a very long pause in real life. Took a phone call and ate dinner. And hopefully we'll be able to finish Chapter 3 with you guys. So, here we go. I've got the chart up. And the chart gives you the ranges. And the way to read the ranges is this right here is the range for Class 1. 6 to 600 here is the range for Class 2, and 9 to 900 here is the range for Class 3. You'll notice it tells you whether or not it can be integrated. So pulse rifles, pulse carbines, pulse weaponry basically, fusion cannons, non-fusion cannon, non-plasma ejector, are the only weapons that cannot be integrated. And if you look at maximum range over here, you'll see that rifles are always going to have more range than the carbine or the pistol equivalent, but the ion rifle is maximum range for a Class 3, so we'll just look at the Class 3s, is 900 for the pulse rifle, 750 for the ion rifle, 900 for the fusion cannon, 375 for the pulse wave gun. That's the area effect plasma attack. Plasma wave gun. Rockets, 1,500 meters. Laser rifle, 1,500. Plasma Injector 900, Minigun 900, Null Ray 900, Railgun 1500. So your longest range weapons are the Railgun and the Laser Rifle and the rockets. Most everything else is 900 for maximum range for a Class 3 and 750 for the Ion and, yeah, and a couple of the pistols and smaller weapons. All of these stats are the non-integrated weapon, not those, damage. All of these damage stats are the non-integrated weapon stats. Integrated weapons can be improved past this through the use of experience points. Non-integrated weapons, you need to increase their damage. You need to use the repair skill as explained in the West End games, Star Wars 2nd Edition Revised and Expanded. I don't think they changed anything when they did a re-up on the Rancor pip boards. And you can actually find that those rules on the D6 Holocron wiki. They're out on the internet for free. People can check it out. It's an open D6 is an open source system. Yeah. Then you get how much payload. How much payload it takes up to carry one of these weapons. And I'm not going to go over anything here really, except for rockets are very heavy for something that does so little damage, but also gets that accuracy bonus. It's a trade-off. What do you want to play with here? Yeah, I really like what he did here. I found my new equipment file, and I'm going to share part of that with you guys right now. Okay, new equipment. So the first thing is a jetpack. That's a tool, but it's equipment. I'm not going to get into that until we cover tools. Same with power armor. You can pause it and read through what it does. Rust Ray Rifle, 4D damage. So I created two weapons I want to go over with you. Both of them. Anyway, you'll see in a minute. Rust Ray Rifle does 4D damage. If it connects, even if the damage is resisted, the secondary effect counts as a stun counter against Cybertronians. When the number of stun counters equals your strength, you are effectively unconscious for 2d6 minutes. So it doesn't actually do stun damage. It just counts as a stun counter. Every time you get stunned in the game, you get a stun counter. When the stun... this is standard rules from West End Games. From their D6 system, this is standard for that. So when the number of stun counters equal your strength, you are effectively unconscious for 2d6 minutes. You're not damaged, you're just out of the fight. You fall down, you're done. A robot cannot move while rusted, but they can still hear and see, so you're not actually unconscious, you're just, you can't move, you're incapacitated. Same payload space as a laser rifle. We can check and see what that is. Laser rifle. Laser rifle 2 payload. There's no scale modifier for the secondary effect, for the stun. So a class 3 hit by a class 1 Rust Ray rifle, you still get a stun counter. There should be a modifier for scale in the secondary effect in regards to class 4 and class 5 transformers, but just a modifier. You should still be rusting them, or getting those stun counters. Electro Scrambler. So this is a name for a stun gun, basically. Blaster from Transformers G1 carried an Electro Scrambler. This is a 7D damage, which puts it really high up there, stun gun, but it doesn't do any physical damage, and it has almost zero impact on fleshlings. And it does not ignore armor either. Using the stun ion damage rules from Star Wars. Oh, it does ignore armor. Ignores armor impacted by the ground tool. That's fair. Uses 2 energon per shot if integrated, 50 rounds for a standard energon mag if non-integrated. I don't think I allowed the Rust Ray rifle to be integrated. So we talked about, now the rest of these are tools and equipment, like a Pretender shell, or I think that's a special ability. Anyway, we talk about payload and why payload is important, and I don't really go into a lot of it. I'm like, oh, we'll talk about it when we get to equipment. We got to equipment, and we're just in weapons right now, but let's talk about it. Every character starts with 2 payload before you start moving your points around. That means every character can carry a rifle, a long gun, in their payload. They can choose to carry just a long gun. Pistols only take up 1 space. Rifles carry 2. Class 3s get 3 payloads, so not only can you carry a long gun, you could also carry a pistol. That's pretty cool. Class 3s are more likely to have rockets. They're more likely to need them too, so they can do that wonderful splash damage that they do. Laser rifle, okay. So that's why you want payload, because you may not be able to get enough points together to have an integrated weapon that does as much damage as a carried weapon. So instead you rely on your payload, and you carry a gun with you on your payload for your first weapon. As your character grows, and it takes time to grow, but as your character grows, that's going to change. You're going to add weapons in, you're going to improve the weapons you've got. All of that is part of character growth and part of being in a role-playing game, really. So pay attention to this, and we're going to see a lot more of it with tools and with other equipment, especially grenades, which I think are next. And before we get to that, can a Class 1 Transformer carry a Class 2 or Class 3 weapon, like a pulse rifle? Now, this was a question he got asked. Can a Class 3 carry a Class 4 pulse rifle? You get the picture. It is possible for a character to use a different size class weapon, although there would be drawbacks. The size doubles the payload cost, or it halves the payload cost. For example, a Class 2 character using a Class 3 pistol would have to use up 2 slots of payload. Likewise, a Class 2 character could carry a Class 1 rifle for a payload of 1. Smaller class weapons and larger class weapons are also a pain to hold on to. I don't know if you guys have ever tried to fire a gun that's too big for you or too small for you, whether it's a Nerf gun, a paintball gun, or a real-life gun. It is not an easy thing to do. So, there you go. Laser tag. I played a lot of laser tag back in college. Smaller class weapons and larger class weapons are also a pain to hold on to. Larger weapons would require 2 hands, especially rifles, which, to be fair, rifles generally need to be carried with 2 hands anyway, even by the same sized, even for somebody they're sized correctly for. Most of the time, you can fire rifles with 1 hand, especially if it's a Nerf gun or a water gun, which probably would only allow pickup and fire, not actually payload action. Smaller weapons are harder to grip, and trigger guards and other functions of the weapon may make handling it frustrating. He gives a general -1 due to firing actions for using the wrong 1 class size bigger or smaller. He gets into some. I'm going to put this on screen for you guys so you can pause it and read it, because I'm not going over all of this. Pause 1, 2, 3. And then I'm going to give you some more of this as he goes through errata. Now he's talking about rockets and the 2D bonus you get. So we're going to pause this. 1, 2, 3. You can go through and read as much as you want. Where does he actually get back out of the errata and frequently asked questions? Okay. Right here. Here. This section, we're going to read through this. So let me get this straight. An ion weapon, laser, and null ray don't do concussive damage. Armor, strength, and size bonus applies to saving against them in addition to the ground tool, correct? So that was the question he got asked, and this is his answer. This is something that I forgot to enter earlier, but was considering much earlier, considering to the point of creating the ground tool. If one is struck by an ion attack or null ray attack, that attack damage ignores armor, including quadritanium skin. One would only be rolling strength of defender against the damage of the weapon's ion or null output. With this considered, the null ray and ion weapons are much deadlier than mentioned previously, but these were the intended effects. No concussive blast, but they ignore armor. I thought I had been entered and it was overlooked. The only saving tool factor for ion and null weapons are the ground tool, which halves the damage they do. Again, in my games, not the way, it's not rules as written, this is a homebrew, but I only have the null raise secondary attack, ignore armor, in my games. The laser weapon's only real bonus is their, that's the wrong there, is their range and ammo. They have weak output, and since the attack isn't part of an electrical charge or EMP, but instead intense light, armor is applied to saving, but not the ground tool. Weapon range explanation, we already covered this. If not, pause it and read through it. Now here are some more weapons. So melee weapons can be carried as payload weapons. They have limits to how much damage they can do, unlike physical state weapons, which are integrated into you. They're part of your body as a transformer. Each weapon type has its advantages and disadvantages. A physical weapon is aided by the wielder's strength, but does physical damage. An energy weapon doesn't incorporate a wielder's strength, but it does energy damage. Energy weapon blades cannot break, but physical weapon blades can be shattered, bent, dulled, and cracked. Physical weapons don't run on power. Energy weapons only lose power when they strike a target. This includes being parried by a physical weapon. Strong characters tend to favor physical weapons, whereas weaker characters rely on energy weapons. That's fair. Hopefully you guys got all that. I don't feel the need to explain anymore. Yeah. Basically, this is the difference between lightsabers and what are those things called? And vibro weapons in Star Wars. So here's the damage chart. I would get rid, if I get rid of Autobot and Decepticon, look, you want a weapon, you can have the weapon. These are basically strength plus 3D is worth 1. Strength plus 3D is worth 1. Strength plus 1D plus 1 is worth half a payload. So, okay, I should clarify this. The weapon you choose, I don't care if it's a knife or a mace or a flail, a hammer, a sword, a spear, a duck, a bow staff, whatever. Fights with a duck as his physical weapon. Anyway, if it does strength plus 1d plus 2 damage, then it takes up half of 1 payload point. If it does strength plus 3d damage, it takes up 1 payload point. If it does strength plus 4d damage, it takes up 2 payload points. I don't care what the weapon actually is. Okay, I just worry about the effects as a GM. An energy, it doesn't matter if it's a knife or a blade, an energy weapon, physical, like melee weapon, if it does 3d damage, it takes up half a payload point. If it does 4d damage, it takes up 1 payload point. The max damage there means that you can't do more than that damage. So if you have 4d strength and you're using a Decepticon Marauder flail, you're not doing 8d damage, you're only doing 70 damage. So if you've got 4d strength, why would you take that when you could take this and, oh, because it maxes out at 70 damage. That's why. Yeah. There is no maximum damage on physical state weapons. That's one of the points of this paragraph. That's all I got. But again, this eats into your payload. Do you want a melee weapon? Did you move all your points out of physical state weapons so you don't have one already? I don't know. I don't know how you built your character. We'll see more of this. We'll talk about this more when we get into the character design section, which we're not in yet. Okay. Indirect weaponry. So these are, again, uses for your payload. You want to keep your payload when you're making your character. Plasma mine. 1 for 1. 2 for 1 payload. Frag mines are 2 for 1. And ion mine is 3 for 1. Now, there's not a lot of advantage of it being an energy weapon like a plasma mine or a plasma grenade, except they tend to do more damage. When we get into resisting different kinds of attacks, it doesn't come up much until we get into the Hero's Guide, and then it's only in one section. Physical attacks matter, I guess, versus energy. If you're hit with matter, there could be a knockback component to it. If you're hit with energy, there may not be. There probably isn't, but there could be. It generally, he says there's no concussive force to it, so there's no knockback aspect to it. I usually don't get into that kind of minutia in my games, so I don't pay that much attention. I just know that plasma grenades and plasma mines do 60 damage. Ion grenades, you will notice, you get the best deal for 5 for half a payload point. Wow. And they're ion grenades, so they don't hurt humans, and they ignore armor. So even though they're only doing 4D damage, they may be the equivalent of a 5D frag grenade, and you get to carry more of them for less. That's at the same class level. If you're trying to get through, what do you call it? A higher classes, I'm saying like a class 3. If you're a class 2 trying to get through a class 3's armor, ion may be something you want to start seriously considering. And having those grenades on hand is, well, I almost all of my characters carry ion grenades. They're just so cheap as far as, payload goes. Okay. They're indirect thrown weapons like grenades. Are they class rated as well? Yes. They are. If a class 2 wants to carry class 3 grenades or mines, better be prepared to have extra space. Again, you go up one class level, it doubles how much space you need. And vice versa, it reduces the amount of space you need, which means a class 3 might decide to carry 10 ion grenades for a half a point of payload if they're class 2 ion grenades. And there's no penalty for throwing a smaller or larger grenade. Personally, I'd reduce the damage if I was into worrying about that sort of thing. These indirect weapons rain out damage in all direction. Blast rating rules are in Chapter 6. Plasma is the most destructive, fragmentation is almost as lethal, and ion mines and grenades are specifically used to fight robotic enemies. As a human, you might actually want to consider getting yourself some ion grenades, some class 1 ion grenades. They're, it would only take up one payload, so that's what, half your backpack? Not bad. Unorthodox ranged weaponry. You have the gas gun and the liquid gun. I'm not going to talk a lot about this. He doesn't go into enough detail here to really figure it out. This is kind of like when I covered the psionic powers under special abilities and the occult powers or magic user powers under special abilities. There's not enough information, but these weapons are designed to have a secondary effect, and he doesn't actually work out what those secondary effects are going to be. The rules for them. If you want to take the time to work them out, go for it. I've never done that. I could, but I don't. It doesn't come up. People generally don't take them. If one of my players wanted one, I would hope they would tell me in advance so we could figure out what liquid they're carrying, because generally you only carry the one liquid or gas. But Cliffjumper had a gas gun, and Ironhide, I believe, had a liquid gun that shot, I want to say, acid. Oh. So, yeah. He goes over some stuff here. You can read it on screen. You can pause it and read it. Now we're getting into tools, and he goes into engineer tool packages first, and he lists them. And then he goes into warrior tool packages, and he lists them. I hate that he does this in this order, because hate is too strong of a word. It is annoying that he does this in this order, because we don't know what he's talking about. What is a radiation tester? What is a laser cutter? What is a biocomp? What is an armored inner tube? What is a foam dispenser? What is a laser welder? Now you could take a guess, and frankly, you'd probably be right. These aren't crazy to know what they are based off, a laser cutter or a laser welder, that is a weld. You weld with a laser. You join metal with a laser welder. You separate metal with a laser cutter. Okay, but what does a scrambler scramble? What does an amplifier amplify? I think the description of the tool should come first, and then you can go and look at packages. The thing to know about packages, the most important thing to know about packages, if you're not taking the engineer special ability or the warrior special ability, it doesn't matter if you take a package or not. So unless you're planning on taking that, don't worry about the package. Just take the tools that you want. Remember, you get 3 tools for every point you have in tools. Okay, so now we're actually going to go to the tool um, uh, descriptions. Yeah, the word's right there. I'm looking at it. It's still not coming to me. So this goes on for a while. Look at that. And they're awesome. And I have some tools to add when we're done. Tool package component, cost, description. Cost is all 0.33, all the way down. 0.33, 0.33, 0.33, 0.33, 0.33, 0.33. It's worth knowing, but I don't think it was worth adding in this thing here. I'm guessing THK had a plan to have some tools cost a little bit more. And that's not a bad idea, honestly. But he didn't end up doing it that way, so I think that's why I included this. Okay. We'll start with the micro optical enhancer, 1D to spot, scan, and search roles under 1 meter away. So the glasses pop down over your eyes, and now you've got an enhanced ability to spot, scan, and search, basically to work with smaller things. Somebody like Perceptor would have a lot of these. Macro optical enhancer, plus 1D to spot, scan, and search roles over 100 meters away. You want to be able to see better? You grab a macro. For longer distances, you grab a macro optical enhancer. For closer up distances, or fine work, you grab a micro optical enhancer. Corrosives inhibitor. This sounds like a nice thing, but acid does not come up all that often in the game. Plus 1D to armor roll to aid in protection against corrosive substances, primarily acid. You might want to take this if you're going to use the acid dispenser, acid ejector that shoots one, and you got ranges here, so it's not long distance by any stretch of the imagination, and does 2D damage, class damage. And yes, multiple picks of the acid dispenser ups the damage additively. 1 point per use, and you only carry 5 shots. Acid dispensers are great for getting out of traps. Like, you could use an acid dispenser to eat through your cuffs, to eat through the lock on a prison. They're not designed to do super tons of damage, but they do get you out of tight spots, or can get you out of tight spots. We actually saw this in one of the G1 episodes. Excuse me. Laser cutter, 3D class damage, standard laser as a tool. Damage is that of a laser rifle, but range is only 3 meters per class. It's not a sword, it's a short distance laser cutter. There's a reason why this is in both engineering and warrior packages. Depending on how you use it, determines whether or not it's a tool or a weapon. You're going to hear a lot about that. But if you need to cut through things and you want to do 3D class damage to do it, a laser cutter might be what you want to use. Mining drill. 2D damage when used. 2D damage. This is for mining. Like, a laser cutter isn't really going to help you much with mining. It's really good for cutting through metal or maybe cutting down trees. Not going to do much for digging into the dirt. A mining drill is going to do quite a bit for digging, especially through stone and breaking up stone. That's out of combat, though. When used as a melee weapon, it is strength plus 2D plus 2. So if you bring your tool out and hit somebody with it, you could break your tool. He talks about that later, but it's going to do more damage than just hitting somebody with your hands. Comp. There's all sorts of different comps. So, a computer that provides 1D to its related skill, i.e. Astrocomp adds 1D to astrogation, Biocomp adds 1D to first aid. There's different kinds of computers. All of the computer skills, I restrict this to technical and knowledge skills. So you can't use a computer to help you with a bargaining roll, but you can use a computer to help you with a value roll, which is under knowledge. It adds to your technical skills and your knowledge skills. Pretty useful. A distancer, an image laser distancer, gives approximate distance of an object up to 2 miles away. Yeah, useful. Circular saw. 2D damage when used as a melee weapon, strength plus 2D. It's for cutting wood or whatever. That's what it's for. It can also be used to get you out of uh, whatever you can use to cut through. If you're trapped, if you're tied up, if you got a circular saw, you might be able to get out of some danger. Patch cord. This one's interesting. Allows a robot to patch into just about any HMI or RMI, aids in computer programming, operation, and repair, plus 1D to those 3 skills. So instead of having to operate human computers with their hands or directly interface with a Cybertronian computer like in the War for Cybertron games, you just you hook right into the computer and you interact with it one-to-one, and you get a 1D bonus to those skills. You can take multiple patch cords to improve your computer programming, operation, and repair skills. Okay? Yeah. Ground electrical damage, including ion weapons and null rays, are halved. Now, that doesn't mean if you take 2 ground, you don't take any electrical damage, but if you take 1 ground, then it's halved. If you take 2 ground, then it's halved once, and then it's halved again. So if somebody was doing you 6 damage, it would be 3, and then it would be 1.5 damage you would end up taking. Because you have it, it's 3, you half it again, and it's 1.5. Make sense? Program lock. Used to safeguard a program by encrypting it. A character's computer programming skill set, role sets, used to safeguard a program by encrypting it. A character's computer programming skill role sets difficulty plus 10. So when you make a program, if you put this lock on it, if you have this capacity to scramble, enhance, whatever, your program security, then it increases whatever skill you get for defending it from hackers by 10. Laser welder. 1D damage used to fuse metals together. This is a surgical tool. If you're playing a medic, you want either this or the magnesium welder as one of your tools. If you're playing an architect and you build things out of metal, you want this. This is a tool you want. Power servos. The skill of lifting is granted plus 1D. Man, he loved lifting. But if you are a crane, a lifting helicopter, anything in that range, if you turn into a construction vehicle, you may want to improve your lifting skill. It also works when you're in robot mode. Digital recorder. This is for characters who want, if you want to play Soundwave or Blaster, or somebody like it. You can record sounds and use them for fun or to distract, humiliate, or terrify your enemies. 8 hours record time. Amplifier. Recorded sounds can have their decibels boosted to the point of annoyance and possibly as a weapon, may cause avalanches or for organics to cup their ears and robots to cup their audio receptors. Yeah, there's a reason why that is 5 energon per round, because if you use your amplifier, Soundwave and Shockwave would often blast their respective enemies with their amplifiers and force them to basically, as long as the amplifier is running, then they're at, I would say it's stun, they're at negative 1D damage. I wouldn't give them a stun counter, but I would say they're at negative 1D to all, not damage, negative 1D to all actions during that round. That's what, as a GM, I would have this work as. Scrambler allows a character to modify a digital recording. Game Master discretion advised. That's not just an audio recording. If you've got a Scrambler, then you can screw with video or digital recordings. I'm sorry, any digital recording, video or audio, or both. Radar. A character is granted plus 1D to spot rolls to detect moving objects within 100 meters per class. So it basically acts as a radar. You're going to catch more stuff. Wench line. Should be winch line. Wench line is something you use in a bar. Winch line. I'm amused. You shoot out a line. There might be a separate tool for shooting the line out, but basically it works just like a winch on your truck. You've got a tow line of 50 meters. And then the winch pulls them back in. And yeah, you'd be surprised how often this comes up. Having a rope really helps adventurers. You see it in movies once in a while. Foam dispenser, 5d damage to fires, flame retardant. So if you're playing a fire truck, you may want a foam dispenser to put out fires. Yeah, it's actually come up a few times in games where people have caught on fire and they were able to be put out because somebody had a foam dispenser. Jackhammer, 3d damage when used as a melee weapon, strength plus 3d. Armored inner tube. This thing does not come up very often, but when it does, inner tube built for character only. It's basically a flotation device that has 3d class strength, so it can take damage, but if you were, I talked about this in a different video, if you're stuck at the bottom of the ocean and you can't swim to the top because your swimming skill's not that good, you can always float. And if you're getting low enough that you're getting crush damage, you may want to actually get out of there, and your armored inner tube would help you get to the surface. Magnesium cutter, same as a laser welder except 2d damage and works underwater. I always take the magnesium cutter instead of the laser welder, just because it does the same thing, costs the same amount of energon per round, I believe. Yeah. And it works underwater. That 2d damage, rarely are my characters trying to do damage to another character with their laser cutters or magnesium cutters, just so you know. Parachute, exactly what it says on the tin. Useful, very useful if you're falling out of the sky and can't turn into a jet plane or helicopter. Party poppers, these are parachutes, but they deploy behind you. So if you're a high-speed vehicle, this will bring you to half speed quickly. I've seen people take these and use them. They're drag races use these all the time. Signal flares, 2d class damage as a weapon. It's got some range to it, but it's for helping people find you when they can't, when there's no other way to do it. Solar port allows a character to charge weapons and gear through solar energy. 12 points per energon per hour. This is not going to help you much in the middle of a fight, but in overall role-playing, solar ports are very nice to have. Most people don't take them. Almost all of my characters do. I understand how hard it is to get energon and how the GM likes to pull tricks like that on you. Like, not that I would ever do that to my players. Who am I kidding? I love doing stuff like that to my players. So when you can't recharge by going back to base and plugging into a wall or consuming energon directly, you've got your solar port. It's nice to have. All right. Grunt has 3 of them. He does not ever run out of energon. Structural integrity computer. This is different than a comp in that it gives a bigger bonus. Grants plus 2d to demolitions instead of 1d with a demolitions comp. By estimating best area placement of explosives on structure. It is the only one of these things that gives you a plus 2d bonus. So, something to think about. Yeah, as far as technical skills go. There are weapons that give you a plus 2d bonus, but that's different. 500 meter remote line. This is basically a remote detonator. So if you're setting up an explosion, you took a mine or a grenade and you've got a detonator on it. So now you can detonate those mines instead of using the tripwire or whatever comes with it. Wire assembly tool. Cut your wires for demolitions or computer purposes without fraying or frying them. I love you, THK. I really do, but I would never ever take this tool. It doesn't do anything for me in game that I can't already do with something else. Sorry. I get a kick out of it though. Jammer. When used, it adds plus 10 to the difficulty of enemy communications rolls. So Yeah. Um, it's going to cut through your energon quick at 5 points per round, but if you know the enemy is trying to communicate, or you want to just keep the uh, enemy from being able to communicate with their inbuilt AM radios, you just use your jammer, and it blocks signals, cell signals, radio signals, internet signals. It's a useful thing to have. Cable bug. I would actually not use this as an integrated thing. I would be tempted to put one of these in my uh, payload, because you can put any tool into payload. So that 500-meter not that, the winch, the, what did he call it? A winch line? The winch line? I might throw that into my, I like to keep a point of payload open on my tunes. Um, Not Doc, because he has no payload, because he's all about his special abilities. But most of my tunes, most of my characters I have a little bit of open payload, and because they have open payload, that allows them to put in different things to use. So I might fill that up with tools. I might fill it up with, you know, depending on the mission we're going in, what weapons or grenades or whatever I think are important for that mission. So there you go. Doobie doobie doo. Cable bug used to intercept enemy communications over communication lines. Wiretapping. Plus 1D to computer operations security roles for interception of data. Also allows you to connect to somebody's internet cord or phone cord and connect right in. Not as useful now in the wireless age, but still pretty useful. I would argue that this would actually, there should be a bug. If there isn't, I think there is, but this could also be a bug for leaving a bug in someone's room to tap their internet, their Wi-Fi. I don't know. Maybe it's not. I have no idea. Aren't I a great guy? I have no idea. Cable cuff. These are handcuffs. They have a 10D for breaking with opposed strength rolls, so you got to beat a 10D roll to break them, which per class, so class differences change. So if you've got 2D cable cuffs, then a 3D character is going to be able to break them easier than a 2D character or a 1D character. Neural charger. 5D stun damage to biological, melee range. Ion charger. 5D stun damage to robots, melee range. Weapon scope. Maximum range extended on one of your weapons, just one. So yeah, useful. One of your integrated weapons, to be specific. Though I wouldn't have a problem as a GM if you added one of these to one of your payload weapons, but then you'd have to be able to fit the weapon scope in the payload as well. If you're into the whole numbers thing, which most gamers are, for ranges, then this could be very important to you. Caltrops. 5 caltrops can be tossed from robot form or deployed from vehicle. Characters that don't make a difficult spot check that are moving in their paths roll 2D class damage. Damage is doubled if they are wheeled vehicles. I also, while you're moving over caltrops, I reduce your speed by half as a GM. Just so you know. Bugs. See, there was something. I could have even seen it. It was on screen at the time. Espionage, but I'm not paying. I'm focused on one at a time here. Espionage agents typically carry transceivers. They can use bugs to listen to other areas as far away as 5 miles. Allows carry of up to 6 bugs. Good to know. I might put something like that in my payload. I knew that was because I've used these before. Weird. Key molder. Ridiculously useful power. Some locks are non-electronic and require a physical key. This tool deploys a liquid metal polyalloy. I was going to say polymer, but it's a polyalloy that can harden in any lock to render it useless or turn to open it. Plus 2D to security for the purposes of opening non-electronic locks, of which there are very many left in this world. Molten Patch. If you are a medic, take this tool. High-tech energy weapons blow big chunks in robots. Laser cutters, welders, and new wires can only do so much. Molten Patch replaces armor integrity, so a robot soldier can get back into the swing of things without his parts showing. Very useful. Take the Molten Patch if you're a medic, or a doctor in the case of Doc. Autoloader. if you're using ammo or fuel-consuming weapons, whether it's a weapon from your payload or a weapon from your integrated, you might want one of these. Extra energon clips, 5 of them, can be locked onto a robot's arm, and when the weapon drain sensor deploys, it can reload a weapon without the robot spending an action to do so. And weapon drain sensor. So look, each of these costs 1/3 of a payload point, right? So if you've got a rifle, a payload rifle, or a payload pistol, and you wanted to add on the weapon scope, the auto loader, and the weapon drain sensor, which senses when a weapon's ammo is at 10% and gives the wielder a warning or reloads if autoloader tool is equipped. If you want to put all 3 of those on one rifle, that would add 1 payload point to that rifle as far as storage goes. So, yeah, something to think about. Or a pistol. A pistol's only 1 payload point, plus this would bring it to 2 payload points, but you'd have a pistol that takes 5 clips worth of energon to go through and gets longer range because of the scope. Oh, I should talk about that. So, short range is always an easy roll for ranged weapons. So very easy is point blank range, easy is short range, and medium range is moderate, long range is difficult, and maximum range is very difficult. Anything past long range, actually there isn't. There's only 3 ranges, short, medium, and long. So what the weapon scope does is it makes basically that it doesn't increase short range, but medium range is extended by 50%, which means that if medium range was 100 meters, now it's 150 meters, which means you only have to get a moderate roll on that 100. No, I'm sorry. Easy. Short range is very easy. Medium range is automatically an easy roll, and long range is a moderate roll. You know what? Double check me on the rules, either on d6holocron.com or the website, the wiki, or in the actual rulebook itself. I can't remember 100% what that is. So it's making it weapon scope is actually extending the range at which you can do a lower difficulty shot. So it is actually a very useful thing to have. It's improving your if you're into range and using range, and not everything is done at short range, which depends on how your games go. You'll get a feel for it depending on your GM and how everything runs. This can be a very, very useful tool for a warrior, and especially for a sniper build. So yeah, you may want to consider using this. You may decide not to. It's up to you. And I need to pause. We're almost done with tools. I'm going to leave this up while I pause, and I'll be right back. And I'm back. Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. And I left my water. That was silly of me. I'm going to need that. I'll be right back again. Okay, I'm back. I am back. All right. And audio capture's working. Good. I have my water. I needed a little break to get some water and clear my head, and let's finish this up. So, here we go. Talked about the auto loader, the weapon drain sensor, and the scope, weapon scope, how they can work together. So, run flat tires is the next tool. Rubber tends to puncture when shot or stabbed or melt when hit by intense heat. This tool allows a character to upgrade their tires. Aim shots at tires, spike strip stop attempts, and caltrop assaults are rolled against a character's armor rating, whether it be physical or energy attack. Roll accordingly. But with run flat tires, they receive a bonus of 1d to their armor rating when soaking damaged tires. So basically your normal defensive roll you would roll with your tires, but with this, you'd add plus 1d to that. 2 applications is 2d, 3 applications is 3d. So if you're really worried about your tires going flat, you can really get 3 tools of this for 1 point. It's something to consider. He goes into he got some very serious questions about this. Can I use the tire defensively while in robot mode? Yes, basically. And then finally, the last tool is offset targeting system. What this does is it allows a larger Kryptonian to shoot at a Kryptonian smaller than them with a plus 1d bonus. So, for instance, if a class 3 transformer is shooting at a class 2 transformer, then the class 2 transformer gets a plus 2d because of the size difference to their dodge skill. So this gives the class 3 transformer plus 1d to their targeting, to their shooting skill. Okay, their ranged attack. But it is cumulatively, and it only works against smaller opponents. So if you take 3 takes of this, then you'll be a plus 3d to smaller opponents. It's very useful for a class 3 transformer. Not so useful for a class 1 transformer unless you're having a problem hitting humans. Okay, so those two pretty much explain themselves. There is quite a bit of errata, I think that's how you pronounce it, but frequently asked questions here about run flat tires. So I'm going to leave this up on screen. You guys can pause it and read it. And then okay, and then we're going to go down here to notes. So this whole explanation is about run flat tires. Notes. It is important to understand that most tools within a package require energon for their usage. Yeah, as we went through that, you could see the energon usage. It's the final column. 1 point per use, none. 1 point per use, 1 point per use, 1 point per use, 1 point per use, none. 1 point per use, none. 1 point per use, 1 point per use, none. 5 per round. Yeah, that's a lot. 5 per round. So if you're not just specifically jamming or intercepting one thing, you're going to be going through that energon pretty quick. None, 1 point per use, none, 1 point, 1 point per use, one use at a time. Again, the parachute and the party poppers, which are a form of parachute, both need to be retracted. 5 points per round, so if you're not in combat, if you're just working on a project during combat, like healing somebody or trying to put something together for a trap or whatever, it's 5 points per round. Armored inner tube, again, one use at a time. Yeah, so you can't just keep using these over and over again. And that's generally, most of these things do have an energon cost. So bear that in mind. That's why engineer and warrior are not such bad things to take for special abilities if you end up using your tools a lot. Let's get back to the note. Where's the note? Here it is. Most only require 1 point, which is 1% on average over all of a robot's total. The numbers add up, though, when the integrated weapon system that requires energon are used. Jams are urged to keep tally of energon expenditure during combat and on missions in between chargings. Look, I make my players do this, and I make them do it with ammo, I make them do it with armor when they run out, or armor with energon when they run out. They have that in mind. So they're used to doing it in Star Wars. They've got an idea of how many blaster packs they need from Star Wars. This is more or less the same thing, though it is a little bit more involved. So there you go. In the above chart, one can see that each tool is worth 0.33 points. In most of the tool packages, there are 3 tool components in the same package. Tools can have their abilities increased with a little help from a technician and proper parts. So you actually can use a repair skill to make your tool more efficient, just so you know. Some tool components can be refitted to be super tool components, which take up 0.66 of total designated slot for tools. Others can be refitted to a 0.99 for an ultra tool. As the last note hints at, one is not limited, I guess that's why he did it this way, one is not limited to having any set tools package. Yes, this means that one can pick and choose among the components and either interchange them between missions if others are available. So that's all using your technical skill to increase those things. This means that one could select laser distancer, wench line, and ground even though they don't belong to a particular package. That's fair. The laser distancer lets you know how far something is away, which is good to know. Not always useful, doesn't always come up, but when it does, it's good to know. Since the liquid and gas guns have tool and weapon uses, is it safe to assume that they can be carried as IWS or ITS or in EP? Yes, they can be carried as weapons apart from the transformer. One could be considered a tool, though the tool would maybe considerably less powerful, typo there, than a weapon that was integrated and could improve in time with experience. It would certainly be less powerful, the tool, than a payload gun. You can also carry tools in your payload, which we've already talked about. The acid shooter does 2D damage class. Is that cumulative? If you get hit with 3 shots in a round, it is 6D, 5 shots equals 10D. If it is cumulative, how long between shots before the next shot starts over rather than adding? If not cumulative, the acid seems weak unless used on smaller enemies. The acid shooter is a tool. The damage is not cumulative, nor is high energy plasma or laser burns or gunshots. Although you raise a good point about things like fire and acid, things that continue to burn after they've been released for some time. I would have to say that the acid or fire's potency would continue to deliver its full damage until it is cleaned off. Acid is a different kind of cutting tool, basically. It's not designed to be used in combat, but it could be. Anyway, in regards to acid shooter itself, keep in mind that acid shooter is a tool. Acid shooters are used to melt locks, bars, things of that nature. That's what I just said. If you want a more powerful acid firing item, one that could be counted on as a weapon, you have to pay for it through either using a payload to carry a squirt gun, or use a point to create a squirt gun that's integrated fuel consuming. That's fair. In the weapons section, it says melee weapons that can be carried as payload, weapons that have limits as to how much damage they can do, unlike physical state weapons. What about integrated tools that are part of the robot, but that can be used for combat as well? The jackhammer, is there a limit to its damage, or does it work like an integrated physical state weapon? Yes, it is limited by the amount of damage that is listed for the tool, so I'm not going to read all this. 1, I already know it. 2, it's boring. And 3, I'm going to leave it up here so you can pause the screen, you can read through it yourself. And I'm going to scroll down some more. He gets into how to break a tool by using it as a weapon. That's this section here. And I think we're almost done with chapter 3. We are. Okay. What is the ion charger tool system? Is it a ranged weapon / tool, or is it more of a mine type thing that is placed somewhere before it blows, or is it a grenade type thing? It's a taser. It is not a ranged weapon. I mean, 3 meters, that's 9 feet per class. So it's basically within melee range, you can tase somebody with your ion charger or your taser. Yeah, I talked about that when we looked at it. Doobie. Yeah. That's it. That's chapter 3. Oh, let's look at my new equipment. So we already covered the rifles, the Rust Ray rifle and the Electro Scrambler. So I have 3 tools that I've created. The footpad tool, the comm device tool, and the sensor package tool. So the footpad tool adds +1D to sneak in robot or animal mode. Pretty self-explanatory. No energon usage. Comm device tool, +1D to communication roles, allows transformers to access various forms of communication. So you need a comm device to access, Wi-Fi, cell phones, radio, beyond your normal AM radio that everybody can communicate with. If you want to have communications, like you're a starship, you turn into a starship and you want to be able to communicate over long distances, you're going to need a comm device. Sensors package. It's a tool that allows you the use of the skill scan as well as vehicle sensors. Additional picks of the tool add 1D to your scan vehicle sensors roll per pick. I'm going to add in here 1 energon per use. And we're going to add that period. That's a comma. We're going to add it down here too. 1 energon per use, period. So yeah, if you want to be able to scan you as a vehicle, you need to actually have a sensor scan tool. And the more you have, the better your COM rules or your sensor package rules are. So I've got a new special ability, Pretender Shell. So this would actually cost as a special ability. We talked about that at the beginning of chapter 2, middle of chapter 2, whatever. So it's a Pretender Shell, useful for class 1 or class 2s with microchanger, though theoretically a class 3 could use it to mimic an elephant or some such. If you are class 3s small enough to mimic elephants? I don't think so. If you transform into a human or animal, you can create an organic skin that perfectly simulates an organic being. 10 energon to change your appearance, and that's it. It stays with you. It's not an ongoing cost. Possibly gives a small armor bonus. I haven't worked out the details. I haven't play tested this yet. No one's wanted to be a pretender yet. And I have 2 other pieces of equipment. So the power armor and the jetpack are both from G1. This Ultra Magnus had power armor in second generation, which was season 3 and the movie, and then jetpacks. They've been in the game. They've been part of Transformers lore since Sideswipe G1 original character. So let's take a look at how I kitted these out. Excuse me. Again, jetpack. It only takes up 1 payload space, but you follow the robot flight rules from special abilities section on the Transformer Code rulebook. 1 energon per round, 100 energon, about 8 minutes of flight time. Jetpack skill is under mechanical. So you use the skill to fly, and it's just robot flight without paying for robot flight. And it only gives you 8 minutes of flight time. So, yeah, not too shabby. You put it in your payload, and it attaches to you. If you've seen the trailer for the Transformers 1 movie that's coming out, there's jetpacks in that too. I'm surprised he didn't have rules for this. He's actually got a picture with a jetpack on it in one of his beautiful MS Paint drawings. Power armor. Again, Ultra Magnus had this in G1. You'll also see Power Master Optimus Prime had power armor. So here's basically what it does. Plus 2d strength to the stat itself. Now you can either have it as part of you, as it takes up 2 payload, or it can be pulled as a trailer. The payload power armor is considered integrated in that since it's taking up your payload, it's part of you. So it, in the same way that One, two, test 1, 2. Okay, my headphones went a little wacky there for a second. If you're using it in your payload, it's considered already integrated into you. You've formed part of it, so there's no penalty to it. But if you're pulling it as a trailer or some equivalent, maybe a motorcycle sidecar, whatever, it's considered non-integrated or a part of your allied payload. So it's -1d dex to all actions. That should be capitalized. So by making it plus 2d strength, by making it plus 2d to your strength attribute, then it also adds both to the damage you do and your damage resistance. If you have weapons on your powered armor, then those weapons would be used through the power armor weapons skill we talked about in an earlier video. Power armor is equipment. It can be damaged or destroyed. Yeah, your power armor would actually take damage before you do. So, and it can be destroyed. Useful, interesting. I took the rules basically straight from Star Wars D6 for their powered armor, and which does not get a lot of use, believe it or not. And yeah, I think both of these work. I have play tested the jetpack. It is phenomenal. Um, Basically, it gives you robot flight without having to take the special ability, and you can hand it off to someone else. Yeah. Also, robot flight doesn't require skill checks the same way a jetpack would. Power armor. Not much more to say about that. Covered all the rest of these. So these are the additional things I've created for the game. This is my homebrew on the homebrew. That's it. We're well over an hour. We're almost to an hour and a half. This is our longest video to date, and we're going to stop. Should probably hire an editor at some point to fix these things up. But what are you going to do? You all have a wonderful day, and thanks for hanging out with me this long. Keep on trucking, you blam blam truckers.